right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. So, the new league year in the National Football League has not officially begun, but wide receiver Deebo Samuel is headed from the Bay Area to the nation's capital. Yesterday, the San Francisco 49ers agreed to trade the Pro Bowl wide receiver to the Washington Commanders. And the move only cost the Commanders a fifth round pick as they are absorbing all of Debo's contract. Now, this is a new and fresh start for Deebo Samuel as he will now be on the receiving end of catches from the reigning offensive rookie of the year in the National Football League. And of course, I'm talking about one Jaden Daniels. Now, Debo's productivity has dipped since his phenomenal 2021 season when he had 77 catches with more than 1,400 receiving yards and 365 more on the ground. Now, Deebo has not been able to stay healthy ever since San Francisco gave him that new deal. Okay. And he just has not had that impact with the 49ers in recent years. So the question is with Deebo going to Washington, will we see the Deebo Samuel of old as he is now putting on the burgundy and gold? I think there's a possibility for that. You're talking about a guy now in Samuel. He's going to be the second option, more than likely, in this Commanders offense in the passing game behind one Terry McLaurin. And of course, McLaurin and Deebo Samuel were draft classmates back in 2019. And we have seen, even prior to this past season, with a quarterback play that really was not as good, Terry McLaurin showed you that he is one of the better wide receivers in the National Football League. And of course, now with Jaden Daniels, everybody knows who Terry McLaurin is. Okay. So I do think that Deebo could have an opportunity to make an impact. I think he's going to be motivated because this is the last year of his current deal. And with that said, guys, he probably wants an extension. I'm sure that Washington would talk to him, but I'm sure they also would like to see some productivity out of him as well to see what Deebo is going to do. Now, it was easy for Washington to make this acquisition because, plain and simple, they have more than $80 million in cap space. And that makes it so easy for them to absorb Deebo's contract. Of course, the 49ers still have to deal with the cap hit. But nonetheless, if you are Washington, and of course, this is showing you how things are finally changing around this franchise. Because again, we heard the reports last season that guys want to come to Washington to play with Jaden Daniels. And I think this is a good sign of that. On top of that, it's a good sign and it's a good move and it's a prudent move by Washington because, hey, you are loading up now on Jaden Daniels' rookie deal. So, of course, we've seen that trend in the National Football League. You draft a quarterback, you play him early, you see what you have. And, of course, if the results are potentially there, you load up on guys while you have them on the cheap on that rookie deal. And this is what Washington is doing right here. I think this is the potential of a low risk, potentially high reward for the Commanders. You only had to give up a fifth round pick for Deebo. You're only really paying him for this year, unless he wants to sit up there and say, "Hey, I'm not playing unless I get myself a long term deal." But nonetheless, we got to wait and see. But nonetheless, Debo's up and down run in San Francisco is finally over. When Deebo was on top of his game, he was one of the better athletes, not receivers, better athletes in the National Football League. I talked about that phenomenal 2021 season for Deebo. The playoffs that year were pretty good too. He had 10 catches for a buck 54 and a touchdown in 3 games that year in the playoffs for the 49ers. And then he also had 27 carries for 137 yards and a touchdown as well. Nonetheless, I think Deebo really needs to get back to that. And sometimes that change of scenery could just be what one needs to do that. On the flip side, for the San Francisco 49ers, you see that this team is transitioning more and more to being a Brock Purdy team. Of course, the 49ers have been in that situation. They used the last pick in the draft a couple of years ago on Brock Purdy. Nobody expected them to have the success that they have been able to have with Brock Purdy. And nonetheless, we are seeing them getting ready to transition to his team more and more. And then, of course, you hear the two sides talking extension. So getting some of this money off the board, I know that the Niners take a cap hit, yes. But nonetheless, I think their extension with Brock Purdy is coming soon. And then also, it's a possibility that San Francisco moves off of Brandon Ayuk as well. Of course, last offseason, rather, we saw the 49ers give Brandon Ayuk a new deal. And of course, unfortunately, early last season, he had that ACL injury. And at the end of the day, the 49ers season was over before it got started last year because they had a litany of key injuries. I just talked about Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams, the phenomenal left tackle missed time, and of course Christian McCaffrey, the All-Pro running back, was hardly there. These are three integral players to that 49ers offense. And of course, San Francisco is hoping that they can be healthy for the 2025 season. Nonetheless, the 49ers are going to pay Brock Purdy. And some people will ask, will that be a mistake? I don't think so. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because it's one of those where is Brock Purdy a great quarterback? No, he's not. Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. Okay. He also thrives when the talent is there around him offensively. But nonetheless, even with all of that said, you look at the going rate for quarterbacks in the National Football League. That is one thing. Also, you look at the drop off as far as in the current NFL from Pro Bowl caliber quarterbacks to everyone else. This has been the biggest drop or the biggest gap, if you will, between the haves and have nots at the quarterback position. So at the end of the day, the 49ers are going to have to pay Brock Purdy because at the end of the day, you're going to look around and say, well, what are my other options at quarterback? Now, Brock Purdy, in my opinion, is very accurate with the ball. I think he could do a lot of good things in Kyle Shanahan's system. And of course, a lot of that also has the impact when they have guys healthy, most notably Trent Williams and, of course, Christian McCaffrey. But nonetheless, Brock Purdy will be in San Francisco for the coming years. Like I said before, it's transition time for the 49ers. Totally understandable. Nothing lasts forever. And the 49ers have had their window to win a championship, if you will, with this bunch. I don't think that the championship window has closed completely. We've seen the Niners have multiple opportunities. They got to the Super Bowl in 2019. The quarterback play or lack thereof from Jimmy G hindered them. Injuries in 2020 saw them miss the playoffs. They got back in 2021 with that power running attack, got to the NFC Championship game. And of course, the lack of play from Jimmy G once again did them in. Got to the NFC Championship game in 2022. We don't know what could have happened because Brock Purdy got injured so early on in that game. And then, of course, 2023, they got back to the Super Bowl once again, and they still could not solve that bugaboo that is the Kansas City Chiefs. And then, of course, the injury bug once again. However, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have done a solid job within their time together in San Francisco as far as drafting and replacing guys. And I think it would be unfortunate if the 49ers were to come off of Brandon Ayuk because you're talking about when he's healthy, he is their best wide receiver. Okay. And he is a guy that can really stretch the field, but maybe they know something that we don't. I don't know. But nonetheless, I think that this was a win-win trade for all parties involved. I think if you're Washington, you get yourself a receiver, you only had to give up a five. And of course, you can ask yourself, would you have gotten a quality receiver like a Deebo Samuel in the fifth round of this upcoming NFL draft? That's a question for the Washington Commanders. At the end of the day, like I said before, it's a low risk, high reward situation potentially. If Debo comes in hungry, if Debo comes in motivated and plays off of Terry McLaurin and the ability of Jaden Daniels, I think this could be a big time impact because remember, neither Brock Purdy or Jimmy G have the scrambling ability of a Jaden Daniels. So, of course, with Jaden Daniels' scrambling ability, his receivers are going to get open because the coverage is going to break down. And that's where a guy like Debo can come into play, especially going across the middle of the field. If you're San Francisco, you got off of a guy that plain and simple did not want to be there anymore. And of course, unhappy campers could potentially be problems for your team. So if you're San Francisco, you're moving on from him and you're going in another direction. And at the end of the day, plain and simple, it's business. But nonetheless, Deebo Samuel has him a new home. He'll be with the Washington Commanders. Let's see if he'll make an impact with his new team. And let's see what's next for the 49ers. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Also, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.